A plane carrying 44 people vanished over the Yukon in 1950. No crash site, no distress call, no final goodbye. The wilderness didn't swallow them. Physics did. The Yukon isn't just remote. Under the wrong conditions, it becomes something else entirely. A place where radio signals don't just weaken, they die. Where mountains, atmosphere, and the ground beneath your feet conspire to create corridors of absolute silence. To understand how a plane could disappear without a single transmission reaching the outside world, you have to go back to January 26, 1950. United States Air Force Flight 2469 lifted off from Alaska bound for Montana, carrying 44 souls, soldiers, civilians, a pregnant woman, and her toddler. The aircraft was unpressurized, forcing the crew to fly dangerously low, threading through the jagged peaks of the St. Elias Mountains. In the dead of night, at 11:09 p.m., the pilot radioed his position near Snag, Yukon. He reported heavy icing, a violent tailwind pushing them faster than planned. He said he would call again when they reached Whitehorse. He never did. No distress call, no wreckage. 44 people gone. The question investigators couldn't shake: how does an experienced crew, in contact only minutes earlier, simply go silent? The answer was hiding in the landscape itself. The Yukon sits directly atop the Mackenzie River magnetic anomaly, a colossal, ancient magmatic structure buried deep in the Earth's crust. Highly magnetized, it warps the baseline magnetic field across an enormous region. Ground wave radio signals, the kind pilots rely on for low-altitude communication, are hit with massive, chaotic interference the moment they try to propagate across this terrain. The signal doesn't fade. It fractures. But the threat isn't only below. It's above as well. The Yukon lies directly beneath the auroral oval, the atmospheric ring where solar radiation funnels down toward the poles. When solar activity is high, the upper atmosphere becomes violently ionized. This creates the northern lights. It is beautiful. It is also lethal to radio communication. High-frequency signals attempting to escape the deep valleys hit this ionized layer and are completely absorbed. The atmosphere itself becomes a wall. And then there is the terrain. In the St. Elias Range, steep walls, frozen ridgelines, and narrow valleys don't just block signals, they trap them. Radio waves ricochet off rock faces, arriving at the receiver from dozens of different angles, each a fraction of a second behind the last. This is called multipath distortion. The waves collide. They cancel each other out. You could be transmitting from half a mile away. The receiver hears nothing but static. The search for Flight 2469 lasted weeks, and it was made worse by something searchers didn't fully understand at the time. The plane carried a hand-cranked survival radio, a Gibson Girl emergency transmitter. Days after the disappearance, operators began picking up faint, distorted signals. Distress patterns. Someone, it seemed, had survived. But the signals were phantoms. The mountains had bent and funneled the transmissions, pointing searchers toward dead ends hundreds of miles from the actual crash site. The same physics that silenced the pilot was now manufacturing false hope. Teams spent weeks chasing echoes. The wreckage was eventually found, but only after time had already turned the disappearance into legend. This is what makes the Yukon so unsettling. Not that it hides people in some supernatural way, but that under the wrong conditions, it can make a voice disappear into the air and leave almost nothing behind. Not magic, just a place where silence wins. Or at least, it always has. Until now. For 75 years, Flight 2469 stayed exactly where the Yukon left it. No wreckage, no bodies, no answers. The military searched, failed, and walked away. Officially, they stopped looking in 1950. They never went back. Because the rules say the agency that hunts for missing servicemen only handles the ones lost in war. 44 people who vanished in peacetime didn't qualify. So for 3 generations, their families waited, and the Yukon kept its secret. But in December of 2025, a small team decided the silence had won long enough. Not the Air Force, not the government. Volunteers. A biologist. A search and rescue veteran. A remote sensing expert from the University of Alberta. And they brought something the 1950 searchers could never have imagined. Synthetic aperture radar. Satellite imagery from 3 space agencies, and artificial intelligence, trained to find a single piece of buried metal across 4,500 square miles of frozen wilderness. The same kind of technology we use to map other planets is now hunting for 44 people who never came home. And here's what makes them think they'll succeed where everyone else failed. The leading theory now is that the Skymaster iced over and went down onto a glacier, which means for 75 years, the wreckage hasn't been lost. It's been frozen, sealed inside the ice, preserved. And the glaciers of the Yukon are melting. It's happened before. In 1952, a military plane went down on an Alaskan glacier with 52 men aboard. For 60 years, nothing. Then, in 2012, a routine flight spotted it. The ice had finally given it back. The same thing could be happening to Flight 2469 right now. Somewhere out there, the ice may be loosening its grip. There's a woman named Kathy Lewers. Her father was on the ground crew that day. He lost his pregnant wife and his toddler son on that flight. He spent the rest of his life writing letters to the other families, telling them what good men their sons and husbands were. His daughter is still fighting to finish what he started, and she says it simply. It is our responsibility to find them and bring them home. The Yukon hasn't changed. The dead zones are still there. The magnetic anomaly still warps every signal that crosses it. The valleys still swallow sound whole. The physics that took Flight 2469 out of the sky and erased every trace of it is exactly the same today as it was that night in 1950. But for the first time in 75 years, something is pushing back against the silence. The Yukon is very good at keeping secrets. We're just finally getting better at taking them back. Sleep tight.